Simon Calder's with us, travel correspondent at The Independent. Thanks for being there for us, Simon. I wonder what this is going to do for flights today to India, particularly on that airline which, as Kundan was explaining to us just then, one he takes a lot, which has had its problems.
Well, yes, and of course everybody's thoughts go out to the victims of this terrible disaster, both on the aircraft and on the ground. Our hearts are breaking at the desperate human toll that this has caused, and of course people want answers. In terms of the effect on aviation, well, the aircraft was due to operate out of Gatwick Airport tonight, flying back to Ahmedabad. That will not be happening. Other Air India flights, other flights on other airlines to India will be going ahead as normal. Clearly, this is desperate news for everybody working in aviation. Thankfully, the crash of a large wide-body jet on an intercontinental route is extremely rare, but my goodness, all of the people working at Air India, people working at the airports involved, anybody involved with aviation is just looking at this unfolding disaster with horror. And of course, at the same time, the investigators are getting to work as swiftly as possible.
It's a Boeing plane. That is a company that, again, has had problems with its previous safety record. I mean, I've got, I'm afraid, quite a long list now of recent incidents, certainly before 2018, of Boeing planes that have crashed after takeoff, killing people. I wonder what the difficulties are going to be for that particular company as well.
Well, from what I understand, the US stock market has already priced Boeing down. I think that is very premature, as really is any speculation with people saying that they know what the cause is. I can tell you a kind of spectrum of what investigators will be looking at. It will be everything from possibly human error, maybe a bird strike just as the aircraft was lifting off, multiple systems failures. All manner of circumstances could have explained this. They will also be considering the possibility that there was malevolent action against the aircraft. I've spoken to a range of people about this, and they are all pointing at various scenarios. But, Tom, the way these things tend to play out is that it may well be that there was a whole sequence of events which together caused this terrible accident, and if one of them hadn't happened, then it would not have taken place. We don't know what they are. They will be desperately seeking the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder so that they can find what happened in those crucial seconds when the aircraft was airborne before it crashed, and trying to identify initially, is there anything that we need to know about that could affect flight safety on other airlines, on other aircraft?
I wanted to bring you this because it's a clip of someone who became a whistleblower about Boeing. He was a quality engineer at Boeing, a man called Sam Salipur, who came forward in 2021 and 2022 accusing the aircraft company of cutting corners in the production of the 787 Dreamliner. Now, that is important in this context because the plane that crashed today was a 787, about which there had been, up until now, no problems whatsoever. And I just wanted to play you what Mr. Salipur said he believed was going wrong in the production of those planes some years ago.
I repeatedly produced reports for my supervisors and Boeing management demonstrating that the gaps in the 787 not being properly measured or shimmed in two major joints of the 787. Evaluating from Boeing, from the 29 inspected airplane data, I found gaps exceeding the specification that were not properly addressed 98.7% of the time. I want to repeat that. 98.7% of the time, the gaps that they were supposed to be shimmed, they were not shimmed. I want to make clear that I have raised these issues over 3 years. I was ignored. I was told not to create delays. I was told, frankly, to shut up.
That is Sam Salihpour, a quality engineer at Boeing, who came forward in 2021 and 2022 about what he said were his concerns in the production of the 787. Boeing have said, quotes, "These claims about the structural integrity of the 787 are inaccurate and do not represent the comprehensive work that Boeing has done to ensure the quality and long-term safety of the aircraft." Let's speak to Chris Lomas, who's a pilot and aviation specialist at Flight Radar 24. Thanks for coming on, Chris. I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about these planes, particularly the 787.
Yeah, hi Tom, thanks for having me. So the 787 program in isolation, in the long run, has actually been pretty successful. There are around 1,100 787 family aircraft flying worldwide. 27 of those, including the aircraft we lost today, are flying with Air India. And they're a pretty extensive family of aircraft. The aircraft involved today was a Dash 8 series, which was the first variant to fly and is the shortest of the three variants. There's also a Dash 9 and a Dash 10. And I think it's important to look at, whilst there were issues in the construction and in the launch of the aircraft, it has actually gone on to have an incredibly strong safety record and generally quite strong reliability. And it's important, I think, to separate it to a certain extent from the 737 MAX issues, which were really quite different in their nature, mostly because the MAX was designed as an upgrade to an older airframe, whereas the 787 was a clean sheet or a brand new design with a lot of new technology.
And this, Chris, it's worth saying that the investigation obviously is still going on into exactly what went wrong here, which could involve a number of different factors, I guess, not related actually to how the plane was built or any problems with the plane itself, but a whole range of things, whether it's pilot error, whether it's, I don't know, a bird strike, that kind of thing. As an aviation specialist, as a pilot yourself, what did you make of the video of the plane going down?
Well, I think it's hard to... It's difficult to speculate this early after any incident. We are within the first few hours of the occurrence. And of course, being in the age we live in, you get a lot of footage circulated quite quickly, often without any context. However, I think that there are some observations which have been made quite widely, which I think seem fairly valid. There's footage of the aircraft from behind as it impacts with the ground. And it would appear that the configuration of the aircraft is unusual for that phase of flight. So the aircraft, as we see it, appears to have the landing gear down and the wing flaps, which are surfaces that extend from the back of the wing to create more lift, they seem to be retracted. Now, under normal circumstances, we would expect to see that the other way around during a takeoff. The first thing after takeoff is typically to confirm that the aircraft is climbing and then to retract the landing gear. The flaps are then retracted incrementally as the aircraft climbs. And it's quite important that that flow is maintained to ensure that the aircraft has enough lift at that slow speed it's at in its initial climb to stay in the air. So that's one talking point which has been widely circulated, which is based on something I think might have legs to it.
Is there, broadly speaking, Chris, when tragically, when these sorts of things happen, when these plane crashes happen, which is obviously very rare, fortunately, is there a broad time frame for how quickly an answer can be arrived at as to what went wrong?
The short answer is no. The investigative efforts for these things tend to kick off pretty much straight away. We've already heard in the last few hours that both the UK and US are sending representatives to India to support with the investigation. A lot of stakeholders are involved. So you're looking, in this case, at the Indian aviation regulator. You'll be looking at representatives from Boeing, the manufacturer of the engine, and representatives from other countries that had passengers that were on the flight. So it's a big logistical challenge, and it's a difficult job because it's something which people inherently want answers to, and they want quick answers to. And unfortunately, in these investigations, quick answers are almost impossible to come by. The way it tends to work is that there will be a preliminary report that could be fairly soon. It might take slightly longer. That sometimes doesn't reveal a great deal in a detail. That can sometimes pretty much just say this aircraft crashed after takeoff at this height. So it can be quite broad, and it can often be in the years timescale before you get the full report at the end of an investigation.
I don't know, Chris, whether you notice as a pilot or whether you've experienced it that after events like this, when there has been a high-profile accident or incident with a plane, that there tends to be a kind of reticence amongst the travelling public to get on a plane, or a nervousness about flying again that might creep in, that you as a pilot sometimes, I mean, I've heard it on planes myself, a pilot will come over the address or whatever and give some reassuring words about the turbulence that's about to be experienced, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a natural reaction on the part of some of the flying public to feel that way. I think it's important to just once again put into context both this accident and major accidents in general, and just how rare they are. At Flight Radar 24, we track anywhere sometimes up to 200,000 flights a day. And these accidents are so infrequent. Even minor accidents are very infrequent. And decades of learning and investment have gone into the safety infrastructure that props up the civil aviation industry and makes it statistically the safest way to travel. And I think that that's always the simplest thing to remind people. But my opinion on that would be, you should not be reticent to fly on a 787. I would fly on one tomorrow. The aircraft has an incredible safety record, and the aircraft itself is just one aspect of what is investigated as part of that big investigation. They'll also be looking at the actions of the crew. They'll be looking at the flight recorders they can recover, all kinds of other factors. It is just one thing, and I think that you should be absolutely confident in flying on a Boeing 787.